All right, this is how to play Dead of Winter. Let's get going. So the object of Dead of Winter is to complete your secret objective card. Each player is given a secret objective, and they're twofold. There's two different types. You have one that is the regular secret objective, which means that you are a part of the colony trying to contribute to help everybody win the game. You're trying to complete the main objective plus any additional goals, such as collecting various cards and over the course of the game. The second secret objective card that you could be getting is a Betrayal Card. Your goal of the game is to get morale to drop to 0 and also to collect different cards or do different things over the course of the game. But you don't want the colony to succeed, so you're looking to destroy the colony while still being able to complete your other objectives. Once you get your secret objective, you'll place it face down in front of you, and you'll keep that to yourself over the course of the game. All right, the game is broken up into two different phases. You have your player turn phase and your colony phase as indicated on your player board. The first thing you'll do on the player turn phase is reveal the crisis. You'll flip over the top card of the crisis deck. This tells you how many cards you need to contribute that have this symbol. You can add 2 additional cards on top of the needed amount to increase morale at the end of the round. If you fail, there's also a fail condition. It's usually losing survivors or losing something valuable. The second part of the turn is the roll action dice. You'll take all of your unused and used action dice. You'll clear them off. You'll then take 1 action dice that everybody gets, plus you get 1 action dice for each of your survivors. In this case, I have 2 survivors, so I'll take 2 dice. That gives me 3 dice, and I'll place them in my unused action pool, or action dice. Then I will go to the player turns. Whoever has the first player marker will act first. All right, when you start your player turn, when it's your turn, the person to your right will draw a crossroad card and hang on to it. When you have the crossroad card in front of you, you'll keep it secret and you'll read the italicized text. If the active player ever does or meets the requirements of the italicized text, you'll immediately stop the player's turn and read all of the text for that card as well as the options for that player. That player will then choose one of the options to do and receive any bonuses or suffer any effects that take place. That's the crossroad cards. On your turn, there are several things you can do, and the actions are broken down into actions that require a dice in order to do an action and actions that don't require any dice. So let's go over the actions that require a dice. Right here we have the attack. We can attack a zombie or you can attack a survivor. When you attack a zombie, you'll choose a survivor that's at a location and you will look at their attack symbol and you'll spend a dice that is equal to or greater than their attack. So I need to spend at least a 1 or more for this guy. So I could spend this 1, move it over to my used action pool, and then I would remove 1 zombie from that location, effectively killing him. Anytime you kill a zombie, or anytime you move from one location to another location, you have to roll the exposure dice. So I would roll the exposure dice. On a blank, nothing happens. If I rolled a wound symbol, then I would place 1 wound marker on my guy. If at any time you take 3 wounds, then your guy immediately dies. The other type of symbol I could have rolled is the Frostbite Symbol. If I rolled that, I would take a Frostbite token and place it on my guy. And at the beginning of each turn, every time I have a Frostbite symbol, I'll place an extra wound marker on him. So Frostbites are no good. Next is the bite symbol. If I rolled a bite symbol, he would immediately die and be removed from the game. Since he was my leader, I would have to place somebody else as my group leader, move him over there, then remove him from the board. Because there was another survivor at the location that he was bitten at, the bite would spread to the survivor with the lowest influence. Since he's the only one there, to go to him. He could choose to take the bite and absorb it and die, or he can choose to, and that would stop the spreading, or he can choose to roll the exposure dice. If he rolls the exposure dice and lands on a blank side, nothing happens and the spreading stops. If he rolls any other symbol, he dies and the bite continues to spread. It'll spread until somebody absorbs it and just kills himself off, or a blank side is rolled on the dice. The other part of attacking is attacking a survivor. Now, let's say I'm back over here again. In order to attack a survivor, I would need to spend a dice that's equal to my attack or greater, so I could use this 4 and spend it to attack the survivor that's at a location that I'm at. I would then look at that character's attack that I'm attacking. He has a 3. I would need to roll my dice and get a 3 or less in order to place a wound on him. In this case, I was successful. So I would place a wound on my opponent's card, and he'd be closer to dying. You do not roll exposure dice when attacking a different survivor. The next action you can do is the search action. The search action is you'll choose a location that you're currently at, and you can search. You'll spend 1 dice equal to your search or greater. So in this case, I need a dice that has a 3 or more. I could spend the 3, move it over there. I can then draw the top card of the location deck that I'm currently at. And then if I could take it in my hand. If I don't like that card, I could continue to draw more cards into my hand. Each time I do that, I'll have to place a noise token at the location for each additional card that I draw. And I can do this as many times as long as there's spaces for noise tokens. Once I decide to stop or I run out of noise, then I have to choose 1 to keep. I'll then shuffle the rest back into the deck, and that would be my search action. Another action that you can do that requires the spending of a dice is building a barricade. I could spend 1 dice, doesn't matter the number. I could take 1 barricade token and place it at the location that one of my survivors is at. So I could go ahead and place this barricade up here at the gas station. The next action I can do that requires a dice is I can clean waste. Over the course of the game, when you play cards, the waste pile will be building up. I can spend 1 dice, doesn't matter the number, to remove 3 waste cards from the waste pile. So I take 3 cards, remove them from the game, and I've cleaned up the colony a little bit. The last action that you can do that requires a dice is I can spend a dice to attract 2 zombies. So I would choose a survivor that I have. So I might choose my follower over here, and I could attract 2 survivors from anywhere I want. I could attract, a zombie from the colony, and I could attract maybe this zombie from over here and bring them over to my location. The actions that don't require any action dice include playing a card. You can choose a card from your hand and play it, effectively doing whatever the card says. So it might be add 1 food token to the supply. I could use a junk card to reroll an unused action dice, and I would play those cards into the waste pile. I could add a card to the crisis. Remember, we need to add cards that have this symbol. However, I'm a betrayer. I could add a card that has the symbol, but I could also add just another random symbol to help to make the crisis not take effect. I could move a survivor, which I choose one of my survivors and move them to any other location. I would roll the exposure dice and do the corresponding effects. I can spend a food token. Every time you spend a food token from the supply, you increase one of your dice by 1. So I could change this 4 to a 5, and you can spend as many food tokens as are available. I can request a card from the other players. I could say I need a food. They could whoever has it could give me that card. I would then immediately have to play that card. I cannot use that card to contribute to the crisis deck. Next, I can hand off. For the handoff, I can take 1 item that I have equipped. So if I had my weapon equipped to this guy, and I can hand it off another survivor, both in my group or into my opponent's area. They would immediately take that card and equip it to one of their survivors. The last thing you can do is vote to exile. If you think somebody is a betrayer and you think they're trying to make the game tank, you can vote to exile everybody. When you start a vote, everybody will have to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If the majority of the group votes a thumbs up, then that person will immediately be exiled from the colony. He'd have to take any survivors that he has in the colony, move them to outside locations, not rolling exposure dice. He would immediately take an exiled card and discard his secret objective. And then now you will have a new objective for you to complete. If you're the betrayer, you'll complete those. If you're not the betrayer, you'll complete that. There's a lot of things that go into being exiled. If you're exiled and one of your survivors die, the colony does not lose morale. You cannot contribute cards to the crisis. When you play cards from your hand, they don't go to the waste pile. You can't spend food tokens from the supply. You can't add food tokens to the supply. You can't go to the colony. You have to effectively stay outside the colony and try to complete your objective. Once the player turn is done, you do the colony phase where you pay food. You have to pay 1 food for every 2 survivors at the colony. So in this case, we have 2 helpless survivors. So we'd have to pay 1 food. We would then check waste. We would check the waste. We want to make sure that there's not 10 or more cards in there. If there's 10 or more cards in the waste pile, we would lose a morale. Our morale would go down by 1. We would resolve a crisis. So we would take the cards that have been contributed to the crisis, we would shuffle them, and then reveal them. We would add up all of the card symbols, or all of the symbols that we need, the food symbols in this case. We have 1, 2, 3. Any symbols that don't match, subtract 1. So we'd have 1, 2, 3 minus 1 is 2. We needed to get, in this 3-player game, we needed at least 3 food cards, but because somebody played this one, the objective failed. So the fail of the crisis would take effect. We would then discard the crisis card. Next, we add zombies to locations. Any location that has survivors, for instance, the colony, we would place 2 zombies at the colony. When you place at the colony, you place on entrance 1, then entrance 2, entrance 3, and you just keep going around in a circle until they've all been placed. If you go to place a zombie, for instance, the next entrance 2, there's too many zombies there, meaning that this entrance is overran, so that zombie wouldn't get placed. Instead, whoever has the lowest influence at the colony, that survivor would die. If there's no survivors at the colony, there's only helpless survivors, then a helpless survivor token would be removed from the game. When adding zombies to the locations outside of the colony, you would add 1 zombie for every survivor at a location. Once again, if it's overran, that survivor would take a wound. When adding a zombie, if there is a barricade token, you can effectively discard the barricade token and not place that zombie. Then for every noise token at a location, you'll roll 1 dice from the dice pool for each token, and if you roll a 3 or less, you'll add an additional zombie to that location. So for this noise token, we'd have to add an additional zombie to this location. Once all zombies have been added, we check the main objective. The main objective is what everybody who is part of the colony is trying to complete. If at any time the victory condition has been met, well, the game would end and then everybody would reveal their secret objectives. If you completed everything on your secret objective, you would be one of the winners of the game. It is possible for several people to win and several people to lose. Then we would move the round track marker. So we'd move the round track marker down. We would pass the first player token to the person to our left and continue playing until the game has been completed.